What's up, guys? So Vivek Ramaswamy, the Republican candidate for president, had a fiery interview on The Breakfast Club where he was viciously attacked, asked biased question after biased question. He did very well, although they did land a slight blow, in my opinion, that may have exposed his Achilles heel. Let me know what you think.
So you mentioned, the pride of being an American and how important it is to have pride in this country. I'm also a veteran, by the way, for the United States Air Force. So when is it that you voted for the first time?
I voted in 2020.
Okay, so you're how old again?
I'm 37 years old.
So for how many years you sat around and did not get involved at all in any civic engagement? Is that my understanding?
A long time is the answer. And actually, that's what I wrote this book about. I'm not holding myself out as some sort of model. I'm actually offering myself as a self-reflection of my journey as a citizen to whom this country has given much, right? As an adult, when you have kids, it changes your perspectives. I'm very honest about that.
So obviously this woman doesn't like Vivek. She's got a lot of hate in her heart. She's very rude, condescending. She takes little jabs at him. Setting that aside, is this issue important? Because to me, it doesn't really sit all that well. I'm not saying it's disqualifying, but it doesn't sit all that well, the fact that he's only voted for the first time just a couple years ago. And now he's running for president. So is this an Achilles heel? Just to give you some context, let me show you his plan to get younger people to start voting. So here's his plan.
Sure. So my position is, I think that every kid who graduates from high school should know the minimums about the country that we require an immigrant to know about the country in order to become a citizen. So there's a test. My mom had to pass it. Every immigrant has to pass it to this country that asks you some basic questions. What are the three branches of government? What branch of government does the U.S. president lead? Some basic questions about what is the Bill of Rights. It's like a multiple choice exam, or some of them you write in. I think that if we're going to ask immigrants to pass that test, as we should, I think every 18-year-old who graduates from high school should have to pass that as well, because young people, it goes back to that issue of pride. You don't value a country that you don't know something about. You don't value something you inherit. You value something you have a stake in creating, in building, or knowing something about. So how do we think big about this? Well, young people, as I told you, most of them, very few of them vote as it stands today. Super small numbers. And apparently 60% of them say they would rather give up their right to vote than give up TikTok. Well, I say, all right, let's take that to the next level. How about we do something that raises the voting age from 18 to 25, but you still get to vote at 18 if you just pass that same civics test that an immigrant has to pass in order to vote. And tests aren't for everybody, so be it. Then you at least serve in the military or a first responder role for 6 months. That's my civic duty voting proposal. And the reason is, I'll actually make a prediction. I think youth voting in this country will skyrocket. From a very low level right now, it will skyrocket because you value something you actually have to earn. And I think that this is not a left-wing or right-wing point. We all have duties as citizens, right? You know, we aspire to free market capitalism, right? Materialist advance. And that's the life I've lived as well, by the way. My parents came to this country with not a lot of money. I've lived the American dream. I've made a lot of money by building businesses. That's one side of what it means to be an American. But part of it is we also have duties to this country. And I think the more we wake that up, actually, the voting age only became 18 in 1971 in the context of the Vietnam draft. So I just think reviving those ideas is going to be good for us.
So I think that's a really good plan. I mean, I agree with almost everything Vivek says. I really like him. He's a super hard worker, probably the hardest working candidate out there right now. And, I think on this particular point, I do find it ironic that he's, trying to put a plan in place to get younger people to start voting, but as a younger person, he never voted himself. I don't really like that. It doesn't sit all that well with me. I'm not saying it's disqualifying, but I was surprised to find that out. I was kind of shocked, and I don't really like that he's not voted up until just a couple years ago. And if I'm an opponent of his, if I'm Trump, if I'm DeSantis, and I decide I'm going to hit him, that's what I'm going to hit him on, And I think that although this interview was definitely a nasty interview, and I didn't agree with anything else that the woman said or anything like that. I do think that this was a valid point that she brought up. And I know he goes on to try to explain it. And so we could take a look at that clip now.
Now I'm moving on to, there are phases of our lives where we do different things.
Well, you're moving straight all the way up to President of the United States.
You know, I don't view it as a hierarchy. I don't view it as a hierarchy. I don't believe in hierarchies. The hierarchy is the way the bureaucracy works. I don't believe in so we have a difference in opinion.
You also don't believe in service, and that's where we're having a disconnect.
Well, I disagree with you on that. I just disagree with you on that.
I think it's whack that you're proposing to revoke voting rights for 18 to 24-year-olds unless they meet certain qualifications, but you never exercised your rights.
Well,
so long.
So most young people don't, is the whole point.
I'm not entirely sure what point he was trying to make there. Perhaps he was trying to say that because he wasn't involved, he wants to make sure that going forward, you know, younger people are involved. But he just didn't make that point super clear as to why he didn't vote before. I think really what he was trying to say was that he was focused on business, and now that that's over, he wants to focus on politics. I just don't think that if that was the case, it wasn't the best argument. But let me know what you think. I mean, is this a big deal? Is it a small deal? Does it change your opinion of Vivek at all? You know, for me, I think it's just like a little notch. You know, it's not something that's major. If he's the nominee, I'm 100% going to vote for him. I like him. He's probably second to Trump in my mind. And I think he's got a bright political future. But my impression of him is that it's just not his time. I think perhaps in another 4 to 8 years, I think he could be a complete powerhouse. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks.